So as Lisa said, we're going to be I'm going to be delivering three different sessions over the next 3 weeks under the theme of wellness. So today we're going to be looking after your mental health while working from home. Next week we're going to be looking at connecting and reconnecting. We're biologically hardwired as humans for connection, and that's been something that's been massively challenged for many of us this last year plus. So we're going to be looking at the impacts of it and the importance of it as well. And then in the third week, we're going to be looking at stress and some tips and techniques around that. Um, so the aim of these sessions, as Lisa said, is really around providing some tips and techniques for you all. I'm all about simplifying and uncomplicating things and breaking things down. And it's very much the approach that I take in coaching. Words like overwhelm, too much on, overloaded, huge demands, can't keep on top of everything are the type of words and language that I'm hearing. And I'm sure you can all relate to that to some degree, particularly again over this last year. I think that applied 2 years ago as well, but even more so now. So I'm here and today and next over the next few weeks to provide some tips, but to keep it simple, to make it possible to introduce maybe some positive changes that would support you without it feeling too big, too overwhelming, or not possible. Um, Also, I just want to acknowledge that what I'll be talking about, you probably will have heard of before, or some of it to some degree. But what I've really noticed in the work that I do is quite often we know what would be good for us to do. We know how things would benefit us. We know what we could do to help us when we feel stressed or overwhelmed, but we're not always necessarily doing it. So we can get so caught on the treadmill of life. We're busy, we're just responding to the demands that we have in our day to day that we sometimes forget to stop, to pause, take a breath, and reassess where we're at and see what we can do to help ourselves more. So, really, the tone that I'd like to introduce into these sessions is really about making that shift from knowing what you know you can do to help you to doing something about it. And to me, that's the success in these sessions, is that change happens for all of you to some degree, even if it's something small in that. And finally, before I get into the text of this, is around, I do acknowledge as well that we've got a wide audience here today. So I'm aware that you all have different circumstances, different demands, different situations, some people working, maybe some people not. So I'm keeping my information broad to cater for a wide audience when I don't know the specifics of everyone's situation. But hopefully something that I will say will resonate with each and every one of you. So what I want to talk to you all about today is around managing work from home effectively. And this is obviously working off the place that I'm sure you all are, but how can we maybe all do a little bit more to make it even more effective? So I've broken the theme for this week into 4 sections. The first one is looking after your needs. Second one we're going to look at is structuring your time, then planning and prioritizing, and then the fourth one is switching off and recharging. So as I said, a lot of this is very practical, but hopefully something will resonate with you all. So I'm going to move straight into the first one, which is the looking after ourselves piece. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the text in this box here around putting your own oxygen mask on first. You see that on or hear that on the airplanes when they say you need to attend to you first before you attend to anybody else. So if you apply or take that principle into day-to-day life, I really believe in that, and I'm a big advocate for this, that if we're looking after our own needs more, and let's assume that many of us aren't enough because we're catering for everybody else and all the demands and the challenges in life that have been brought to us, particularly this last year, but that if we're looking after ourselves a little bit more, we are therefore by default going to be able to look after those around us even more as well. We're going to be able to be more present, more available to others. We're going to be more productive and effective in our work. So to me, it's the knock-on effect from that. But in order for us to look after general wellness and to look after managing work and juggling all the other things that come with life, is we start with us and check in with where we're at and what we can do for ourselves. And as a result, that's going to benefit all those around us as well. So just to take a moment to reflect on this and to ask you all, you don't need to share it with anybody, this is for yourselves, but just to take a moment and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you looking after yourself and your needs right now, do you think? And I do acknowledge that that might differ from period to period. Last month you might have given a different answer. Tomorrow you could give a different answer. But it's a snapshot in time. And to me, when we're talking about bringing about positive change into our life, the starting point is assessing where we're currently at. So that's where we're working from. So wherever you rate yourself on that scale, acknowledging it's a snapshot, but then at least you know that's where I think I am. Therefore, that's where I'm going to start working from to strive to move up the scale a little bit more in terms of looking after my own needs. So even to jot it down for yourself, or just to have a thought on it. And then from that, it's to look at what are your needs that aren't currently being met. So I've put a few here on the slide. Some of those might resonate, some of them mightn't. But again, just to take a moment and think, what are the current the needs that you have, the basic needs that maybe you feel could do with a bit more attention, that aren't getting the airtime or the support that maybe they need. So just to think about that, some of them, as I said, might be on the slide, or otherwise you might have some of your own, but to just jot it down for a second and think about that. And then from that, so you've rated where you currently feel you're at. You've identified maybe where there are some areas that maybe could do with some attention. Is to then say, how would you benefit if you made some changes? And this might sound like a really obvious question, which is, well, of course, things might be better if I'm looking after myself more. But research shows that when we have a strong why behind a potential change, we're more likely to take action. So if you can all really personalize it for yourselves and say, what is in it for me? If I were to attend to me and to my needs more, how would that look different? How would that benefit me? So an example I would use is, say, for example, maybe someone feels they're not getting enough sleep, that because of everything that's going on in the day, they're going to bed later than they would like to. So it's to say, okay, if I were to work on that and to commit to making some adjustments and changes to help me to get more sleep, the payoff for that is that in the morning I'm going to be in a better mood. Therefore, I'm going to snap less at my partner or at my children, or my mind is going to be clearer when I'm doing my work. Therefore, I'm going to be more efficient. Or when the demands are coming at me in the day, I'm going to feel that I'm more able to cope with them or to deal with them because I'm looking after my basic needs. So the more we can really personalize it and identify specifically for ourselves why we can benefit from it, the more likely, as I said, you're going to do something. So to take that time to consider it. I'm conscious that these are, as Lisa said, they're bite-sized sessions that we're doing. So what I would encourage is that you even note these questions so that you can look at them after in your own time, so that you don't feel that it's rushed to consider it. And then from that, finally, before we move into the next section, is around what's your commitment to looking after your needs? So could you or can you identify one need that could do with some positive attention? And what I have here is high impact and prioritize. So it might be that some of you have identified multiple things. And I know, again, from working with a lot of my clients over the last while, many of them feel they just don't know where to start. So what I would suggest here is you prioritize and you think of what is the most important thing that I could start with, and also which one would have the highest impact, the highest positive impact for me if I were to look at this. So that it's around really breaking things down and reducing the overwhelm that you might feel when there's so much that you don't know where to start. Start somewhere. Start small, start simple, but start somewhere where there's going to be an impact, a positive impact that you can identify. And can you commit to yourself right now that you will do something about it? And again, that intention is really important. That ingredient for change is key to making change as well, is the intention. I am going to do this. I buy into why I want to make changes for myself. And again, and this is my mantra in my work, but around keep it simple, set yourself up for success, build it into your daily or weekly routine, and build it in so that becomes the norm. And then you can always build on that. So you can copy and paste this process for all or any of the other adjustments or changes that you want to make. So, and I just want to finish this particular piece on this quote, which I think is a very nice one, which is, we need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do list. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us. Looking after ourselves is not selfish. And I know many people might think that, and I know many clients have said that to me too, and said, but I feel like it's bad if I'm caring for me. Whereas it's not, it's called self-care. And by looking after ourselves, as I said, we can look after those around us even more effectively in the long run as well. So that leads me on to my next section under this, which is around structuring your time. And again, if we're going to be looking after ourselves more and our needs more, it's then how do you filter that into structuring your time? And I'm going to talk a bit about planning as well. So it's building in your needs into your structure and into your planning as well, so that it's not just work related or household focused, or children focused, but it's also us as part of that as well. So I really like this quote, which is the bad news is time flies, and the good news is that you're the pilot. And this is really, I guess, a reminder for all of us, myself included, which is around that maybe we have more control over our week than we might realize. But again, when we're reacting to the demands of life, we're on that treadmill, just saying yes and doing that, to step back and stop for a moment and say, okay, but if I were to restructure a little bit differently, if I were to plan a little bit differently, if I were to prioritize a little bit differently, if I were to perhaps say no a little bit more often than I sometimes do, maybe I'll feel more in control of the week, so that we're controlling or in charge of our week more than the week being in charge of us. So again, it's just to set that tone on that theme as I work through this section of structure. So structuring time, again, it's very, I guess, straightforward in many ways, and I guess it's quite one of those, fundamental parts of anything. I look at this around like as if when you're building a building, you need a strong foundation. So to me, when we want to be effective and efficient, and especially dealing with all the demands, having a strong foundation, i.e., a strong structure to our week, to our days, to our months, that can really support us in the rest that comes from it. So it's starting with you structure your work time and your personal time. And maybe you already do have a structure. So we're going to look at that in terms of you have it, but is there anything you can do to tweak it at all to help even more? It might sound very straightforward, but it's sometimes we forget to build in the personal time. So we know that we have work to do for those of you that are working. Some of you might have very set hours and times, others mightn't. Some might work set times and then the boundaries are a bit blurry, and then you find yourselves working longer hours or on the couch late at night. Some people have their own businesses, find it hard to switch off on that. So setting that intention and saying, okay, what is my structure? When do I work and when do I not? When's my work time? When's my off time? And making that decision and working to that as much as you possibly can. It's deciding what your start time is and your end time, your lunch. Many people are forgetting those fundamental things, like when do they eat, and they're not building it into the structure, and setting a routine to support that. So knowing, okay, these are the certain days that I might need to get up a bit earlier, or because you've other or particular extra things on, other days where you're entitled to having that lie in and switching off and doing your thing, but making that decision. And the key thing here is building in your personal needs. So I've, clients who talk to me and they say, I really want to go running or jogging or walking the dog, but I never seem to have the time. And rather than us wishing or hoping that the time will find us during the week, and suddenly it's Sunday evening and we feel we haven't attended to any of that, is to say, build it in, put it as part of your structure and your priority for the week. So just a quick reflection on that, which is around your own structure. How are you, or how do you think you're structuring your day and your week? Do you think it's working for you? Is there any room for improvement? And if there is, what specific change do you think that you could make? So again, it's all very individual to each person. And I acknowledge that structure really resonates with some people and less so with other people. Some people hear structure and say, no, not for me. But all I would say is wherever you're at, in with regards to dealing with day to day, working from home and all that comes with it, if you feel you could benefit from it, and if you feel you're finding it hard to get everything that you need to get done, then maybe it is worth considering having a look at the structure and what you can do to tweak or support it. And so leading from that, then we've got our structure. It's how do we plan and prioritize? So we plan and prioritize with looking at your week. And again, very straightforward, but what do we want to do in the week? What are our goals? What are our expectations of ourselves from a work point of view, household point of view, and personal point of view? And I think something that's really important with this is to-do list versus wish list. And what I mean by that is that often we can have a wish list. I would love to get these 50 things done this week, or these 10 things done tomorrow. But is it realistic? And the risk here is that if we work from a wish list, we're quite likely not going to get it all done, which doesn't help with our morale. It doesn't help with how we feel. We feel like we're behind, we're on the back foot. We might feel that we're starting the next day trying to catch up, or the next week catching up. So it's to really be realistic and say, what are the key things that I need to do here in the week, in the day? And part of that can support that is around prioritizing. It's also looking at what's urgent versus what's important. And going back to what I touched off at the very start, which is around Is there a way that we can be less reactive to what's coming in? So asking ourselves, or when someone comes to us with something, is saying, does it need to be done? Am I the person that needs to do it? And does it need to be done now? And just pausing for a second, or being more okay with saying no. It doesn't mean we're saying no to everyone and everything, but maybe there are times when you could say no, but you don't. And is there a way of working around that? And I know that's easier said than done in many ways, but I think even taking that pause before saying yes and just checking in and asking those questions can help with the response or the reaction that you're going to give to the person or to the need that comes in. So it's really just again to take a bit of time around that and really prioritize what's key for you to do, knowing that not everything can be done in any one time. And key here, going back to the first theme around looking after ourselves, is making sure you're planning in what you need to do for you. So it might sound a little clinical, but many people use a diary for their work and they have their meetings on their schedule and their deliverables. But if you don't do it, is maybe it would be useful is to build into your planner, into your diary, I'm going for a jog. I'm taking the dog for a walk. I'm going to do some painting. I'm going to do a yoga class online. But putting it in, so it's giving it the same importance as all the other deliverables that you have in the week. And that's building up the habit then that becomes the norm and you start seeing those things as of equal importance. And then finally, then the fourth theme of this is around switching off and recharging. So I think the key thing is starting with setting the boundaries. And I think the lines have got very blurred over this last year with the working from home piece. So it's again deciding that, and that takes discipline. And again, it takes an attention, an intention to do this, to say, okay, this is when I'm on and this is when I'm off. And when I'm on, this is what I'm doing. And when I'm off and I have my personal life and my home, this is what I'm doing, and to really set that intention. Set reminders if you need to. Put it in the diary, put it on your phone, wherever it might be, to remind you so that it's putting it into your system then to start doing this in a more habitual way. Taking the regular breaks, checking in with yourself on what you need. Sometimes we need to relax, sometimes we need to energize, sometimes we need to switch off. So checking in with yourself to know what it is that would be good for you to do and finding what works for you most. Everyone is different. So what resonates for one is different to another person. So have your go-to things to do at hand easily so that when you know it's your time to switch off or to recharge or to relax or whatever it might be, you have it there ready as the idea of what you would like to do. And a little and often. And that's an important one as well. And this is to reduce the overwhelm. And I'll just use a quick example, and I'm conscious of our time that we need to finish. But the quick example here of a client who was very frustrated that he couldn't play the guitar because he was so bogged down with everything else in his life. So he was doing nothing. So he was saying that he would like to play for half an hour, 45 minutes, at least once or twice a week. And I was asking, well, at the moment you're doing nothing. So could you even introduce 5 to 10 minutes once or twice a week? And he was saying, but it's not enough. But the question is 5 or 10 minutes of doing that better than no minutes at all? So he actually thought, well, why not? Actually, it is. And little by little, as he started to do that, he found that he was finding more time to introduce this into his life. And now he's playing multiple times a week and playing for longer times. And not only is that helping him switch off, it's also re energizing him. So when he goes back to the daily demands, to his work, to dealing with whatever he's dealing with, he's in better form as well. So he's tackling and managing things more effectively as a result. And then the last 2 points here are negativity detox. So is there a way that we can reduce some of the negativity around us, whether that's through media or through our thoughts, which is something else I'm going to talk about in the stress section and on the third week. But thinking about that in terms of how can we reduce or dilute some of the negativity around us. And on the flip side of that is how do we add some positivity? So go on a positivity binge. So related to that is there are studies that have been done that show that laughter reduces the stress hormone and it triggers the endorphins, and the same with music. So these are two free things that we can do that hopefully we can find time to do, that if we're doing a little bit less of something else, like maybe we don't watch the news for the third time today, or we're not on a feed looking at and hearing about lots of sad news, while that's important to know, but maybe not as much, is to flip that and say, okay, what can I do that will make me laugh a little bit more, especially when life has become very serious, I think, for many of us. And can I introduce music in? And you'd see here through the Offaly Libraries, there you have free access, a free music streaming service called Freegal. So even if you don't have your Spotify account, you've access here to free music. And that's a nice way to introduce that into your day-to-day as you see fit and as you see fit. So I'm conscious I'm talking probably a lot and fast, wanting to get the content in. Just to summarize is to give yourself permission to look after yourself. Think about your structure. Is there anything you could do or tweak there to help yourself? Anything you can do there in your planning as well that could support you more, and think about what you can do more of to help you switch off and to recharge more, to equip yourself more for the day to day. And then just to leave it here on this note, and Lisa has already on the chat box sent through her email, but any questions can be sent through to here. So I'll hand back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Derval. That was fantastic. And already I'm thinking about even a quick 15-minute walk is better than no walk. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to next week already. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And I hope you can join us again next week for more tips and techniques from Derval. And thank you very much.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a good week. Bye-bye.